What's up, guys? Ben here, bringing you another video today. We are heading into the Major 2 qualifiers in a couple of days. So I wanted to get out sort of a post roster change, roster mania tier list video. I don't really know how to do this tier list because we haven't seen a lot of these new teams play, and there have been a number of changes. So let's go through them. Let's go through what I think teams need to work on and try and attempt to rank all 12 teams. So let's dive in. All right, so this is a tier list we had from our post Major 1 tier list video. If you are new here, here's how we do things. We don't do the S, A, B, C, D, F, whatever. We do it this way. Sunday regulars are going to be your top 3, top 4 teams usually, but right now it's top 2. Potential contenders is usually the rest of the top 6, but this year there's not a lot of parity. Work to do is usually teams that are kind of on the edge of maybe being a contender. Maybe they have a hard schedule. Maybe they have a weak game mode. There's potential there for them to really find a good placing at an event, but I don't know if they're going to do it consistently, and they might be on the edge of a roster change. And missing pieces are teams I think clearly need to make a change. So for the sake of this video, kind of explain kind of how I'm gonna do this one. I don't think the top 3, we're gonna do this from the bottom. I don't think the top 3 is going to change here. And then I'm really just going to put everybody else into work to do or missing pieces. And basically the thought process is work to do is anyone that I think got better with the roster change, and missing pieces is going to be anyone that I think did not solve their issues with the roster change. So you could say, well, like, shouldn't Minnesota be higher, potential contender, Seattle, whatever. I just think right now the way the league is Toronto and FaZe, it's Toronto and then FaZe and then OpTic and then everybody else. So I don't really know what y'all want me to do until there's a little more competition going on here, like New York kind of figures it out. But let's dive in and discuss. First up, we have the Vegas Legion, and I know a lot of people were like, oh, after Major 1, they should drop Purge. It seems like the obvious change. Clearly, it wasn't to this Vegas team. They decided to drop Standy for Geo. So Purge is still on the roster, running ARs with Attach, and now you've got Nero and Geo. And keep in mind, by the way, as we do this video, I'm gonna mention a couple of times that, you know, we've had a couple of map pool changes. Terminal Hardpoint is out of here. Real Hardpoint is in. Skid Row S&D is out. Real S&D is in. And we'll probably see more changes after Major 2. But anyway, going back to this Vegas thing, you know, they were a team that, you know, I got reverse swept 3 times in Major 1. It was clear the slang wasn't there. Their S&D had really fallen off a cliff. And it's really odd to me that Sandy ended up being the one being out. Now, you know, it seems like there might have been, you know, some behind the scenes stuff going on there, not on the same page. But I also then don't know why they didn't just also drop Purge, because I've heard that scrims for them since and before the change haven't been that good either. I just don't think this Vegas team knows what they're doing. I don't think the leadership on the players' side knows what they're doing. I don't think the coaching staff really knows what they're doing here. And the thing is they've got to figure it out this stage, because this is their schedule. They have what I would quantify as a very easy schedule to split. They have LAG, Miami Heretics, Toronto Ultra, Boston Thieves, Seattle, and Carolina. No OpTic, no FaZe, no New York. The only top 14 that they play is Toronto. Like, if they play their cards right, they get 4 or 5 wins from the stage. They're sitting at 25 points right now. If you can get in a winner's bracket and, like, you know, give yourself a chance to get top 6, the amount of points you can get from the stage is massive, because it's only going to get harder from here if you look at their schedules for Major 3 and Major 4. So anyway, they play LAG this weekend. In my next video, I'll do sort of a prediction on that. I don't really know what to pick, and then I assume right now I pick LAG. I don't see this Vegas team getting better with the roster change. I think they're another roster change away, and they're staying in missing pieces. And I'm sure at some point I'll get blowback from Vegas people about talking about their team negatively, but I don't know what to say, bro. This Geo is a good player. I don't see Geo coming in really changing the fortune of this team. Then they need another change. A team that did make a number of changes is LA Thieves. So some significant changes. Cammy has been dropped off the roster. Joe DeCease has been moved to the bench, and Income Cramp, and Income's Nasty. So I kind of like the thought process in the changes for Thieves. You know, Hardpoint was a huge issue for them in that first split. They went 1-12 in Hardpoint. Is crazy. I don't think I've seen that bad of a Hardpoint performance since like LAG beginning of last year, and they blew up their team instantly after that event. So I think Thieves did get better with this roster change. The only thing is I don't know how much better, and the problem is that they're also going to play OpTic this weekend, their only match. So I'm going to put them in that spot right now, because I think, like I said, the way we're doing this video is work to do is going to be teams I think got better with the new roster, and missing pieces are teams that I think didn't get better, because I just don't know how to order some of these teams. For now, putting Thieves there, but I don't know. We'll see if these change stick, because this could be a weird one if it's just not working with this sort of weird sort of lineup they've got, or maybe they figured it out. After this match against OpTic, they have Miami and ROKKR, and they have FAZE, Vegas, LAG, and Toronto. So it's not an easy split for Thieves. They're sitting on 20 points, sitting bottom of the league. They got to figure out how to find some wins here. It's not going to be easy. It opens up after this for the stage 3 qualifiers, but they got to improve. All right, the Carolina Royal Ravens. Now, they made their changes prior to Major 1 with Fellow coming in, with TJ coming in. And you know what? They weren't terrible at Boston. They got a nice victory over New York. I mean, that's a respectable upset. They lost the game 5 to Seattle. And this really kind of is the biggest issue with this Carolina team. They're just not a good S&D squad. Even when TJ and Fellow come in, you would think they'd get better at the game mode. They haven't. I can list off a bunch of stats for Carolina, but they're really ugly in S&D. And so looking at their schedule to split, looking at who they're going to play first in this stage, which is going to be New York on Friday, I don't think this Carolina team is going to be in a position to make winners bracket at this stage. Seattle, Boston, or New York, Boston, Seattle, OpTic, LAG, Miami, Vegas. The Vegas match, I mean, you look at that schedule and you look, I get it. They beat New York a couple weeks ago. Respectable. But the performance going into before that weekend wasn't great. There's, you know, they got to all apparently move to Carolina. I don't think the slaying power in this team, even with Fellow and TJ coming in, is very good. I don't know, bro. As people start to learn this game, people figure it out. I'm not really a fan of this Carolina team, and unfortunately, four teams have to be starting losers bracket, and I feel like Carolina is going to be one of these teams, at least right now. All right, next up, we have the Boston Breach, and they made one change. ASIM coming in for Capsidal, and this Boston team had a really disappointing stage 1 at their home event. I think with ASIM, I think they're going to get to a better, more consistent level. I'll put them in front of Thieves, but I still don't know if there's enough on this team for them to be a good S&D squad, which they weren't with Capsidal. I don't know if there's enough on this team for them to be a stellar team, neither Hardpoint or Control. And, you know, Terminal Hardpoint was a map that this team played a bunch. Now they got to get better at Rio. You know, they did play a little bit of Terminal S&D, or rather, they didn't play Skid Row at all S&D. So Rio S&D will be interesting to see what they do. But I like the change for Boston. I just don't know how much better they got. So we will see. They have Carolina coming up first on Saturday. So I'm curious to see how they do in that matchup. That's a very winnable matchup for Boston and get them some nice momentum. Going to a double match week against New York and Minnesota. All right, so Seattle next, and they're picking up Rezi with Inter moving the bench. First off, Seattle said nothing about the Inter situation. This is interesting. Unfortunately, guys, if they're dropping their best player for Brezzy, who I think is a solid player, I don't know if this team's going to have a really great stage. And unfortunately, I think they did not, by my standards of what I said this video was going to be, they did not get better with this roster change. I think they are better than Carolina and Vegas. Don't get me wrong. I think they may get some upsets here or there, but this is going to be a real tough stage for Seattle. They have New York, Carolina, Toronto, LAG, ROKKR, Vegas, Boston. Like, it's going to be tricky for them. They were not a great despite all of the, you know, performance they got from their team last split. Like in respawns, they were combined 9 and 22. Terminal Hardpoint was a great map for them. That's out. Skid Row Search, they were solid at. But that comes in for Rio. People are still not going to square up with them on Terminal S&D probably. It would the method to beat this team to get them off of Terminal is like pretty proven. So I don't know, man. I just don't see it. And if they get worse at Search, with Brezzy coming in, with Inter coming out, and they don't improve their respawn, it's going to be a real tough split for this. So I'm leaving Seattle here. Maybe a little bit of a hot take, but that's what we're feeling right now. All right, let's move on up into here. We got the Miami Heretics. They brought in Eric Boom for Journey. So I think that is an upgrade, to be honest with y'all. But the Miami Heretics are the one team in the CDL that I still, to this point, don't know if they're good or bad. Like, I just don't. This team is so 50-50 that on a given day, they can pull up. And we've seen them play like, you know, OpTic and beat them and 3-0 them. But we've also seen them pull up in like competitive in 3 maps against OpTic. So I don't really know what to think of this Miami team. And let's see with, you know, with Eric, if they can find some consistency, because, you know, across the board, they're a solid invasion team. The other maps are a little bit hit or miss. Weirdly enough, I think Rio might be able to fit the way that they play. So if this team can get pretty good at real hardpoint and real search, they might have a nice advantage over some of these other teams. Now, the only problem for Miami is that they have a very difficult schedule to split. They are going to open this week with a double matchup. Toronto on Friday and FaZe on Saturday. I don't expect them to win either one of those games. Then they have Vegas and Thieves, New York and Carolina, and then ROKKR. So I think they can get 3 to 4 wins, but they got to play FaZe. They got to play Toronto. They got to play New York. That's tough. You're playing 3, and I still think New York's very good. 3 of the top 4 teams. It's going to be tricky for Miami. They're a 500 team. I think they're going to stay that way. They're going to be in the middle of this. I think they're going to stay that way. Just don't know what to think of these guys. And another team that right now, I'm not really sure where they sit on the fence, which is LAG. You know, when we got to the major, they lost to FaZe. And then they made a decent run in the losers bracket, getting the top 6, and then losing to ROKKR at that point after they had beaten Thieves and Vegas. So this LAG team can get results against other teams in this tier or below, but when they play better teams, it's not very competitive. So I want to see this LAG team improve in search and destroy. They really struggled on invasion search, really struggled on Karachi search, really struggled on high-rise search. They have 3 wins across its count. They're 1-3 Karachi, 1-4 in invasion, 1-2 in high-rise. So what, 3-9 on those 3 maps? Not ideal. They were 1-1 in terminal, so that's out of here now. They were 1-1 in terminal hardpoint, so that's actually good for them. But I don't know if going to a Rio map where you see 3 subs, 4 subs, I don't know if that's really going to benefit this team. So S&E's got to get better. They're kind of an iffy 500 respawn team. We'll see if they can kind of keep that going. Now, this week, they only have 1 match. It's against Vegas, and I like them in that matchup. So I'm leaving LAG here. Did not make a roster change. I think top 6, top 8 feels pretty good for them. They're on a path right now to be in a very good spot to qualify for champs. They just got to keep plugging away to create more of an advantage between the teams that are like 20, 25 points, 30 points below them and not below that lead they have right now in the seeding. Next up, we have the Minnesota ROKKR. And this is a team that had a very good top 4 placing at Boston. They grinded it out. They had won their first match against New York in winners bracket, got beat by Toronto. They beat LAG and lost to OpTic. So, okay, they can beat teams in their own tier, the better teams, even the matchups against OpTic and Toronto. The New York one, I don't know what to get to, and we'll get to that in a second. For ROKKR, couple benefits of the Rio situation. They were not a good Skid Row search team, so they can now take their chances on Rio. They were a pretty good terminal hardpoint team. And I think Rio's a weird one because, Wake's going to have to pull up a sub. Right now, on that map, it is in a lot of situations 3 subs. So I don't know if that's really going to fit ROKKR's play style. And they're already a team that can get kind of hard stuck on some vetoes. So I feel like the map pull for ROKKR is something that I'm going to be taking a look at and respawn and in search here starting off the split. And they actually have a very difficult split. The ROKKR have 1 match this weekend. It's on Sunday against Toronto. And then next week, they start this kind of split. They have OpTic, Boston, FaZe, Thieves, Seattle, Miami. So no Vegas, no Carolina, no LAG team that they beat last split. Like, they are going to have to beat a lot of really good teams to make it to winners bracket. And I'm not entirely convinced they're going to be able to do that. So I'm leaving them where they are right now because of their placing in the last split. But I'm gonna be honest with y'all, I kind of expect this Minnesota team to kind of fade a little bit, or maybe they step into the moment. Maybe we finally see what we've been looking for from Big Wake. Maybe we get more consistency from Reese Vivid. We know Linz has been good. Lamar played pretty solid at the land. If we get more from those guys, they'll go, but that is not an easy schedule that's in front of them right now. All right, next up, we have the most underwhelming team. I thought Thieves probably number 2, but most underwhelming team last split was the New York Subliners, who got dead last. Losing to ROKKR and Carolina at Major 1. They haven't made a roster change yet, but there are some major issues with this team. They're a bad control team. Let's just put it that way. Amongst all the 3 different control maps, nothing I saw from this team makes me think that they have that game mastered. The hard point is also super iffy. Now, the nice thing for New York is they were bad at terminal hardpoint 0-3. That map is out of here right now. They were 2-0 in Skid Row search, so they're gonna have to master Rio S&D. But Rio hardpoint should play to the play styles of like Kismet, who loves to make pinches, take routes. You got Paco, who's going to play his corners, get those multi kills. Dante can at times play a sub. We've seen him do it in challengers. I like New York's ability to kind of match on Rio. The problem is that this team has just not been consistent in respawns all split. And once they started losing searches, which they did once they got to Major 1, it became a huge problem for them. So want to see what they can do with some time off. We're going to leave New York in this spot, but I'm going to be honest with you, they are not safe here. We're past the honeymoon stage and giving them like a little bit of a championship hangover here. Major 2 is where they got to not get 12th, because 12th is unacceptable, and they don't get the, even to me, actually, at bare minimum, they got to get top 6 and lose to like a Toronto FaZe or an OpTic type situation. If they're getting top 6 and they're losing to LAG or a Minnesota or a Miami or a Boston, I think we're going to have a lot of problems with this New York team and just say that they're mid. But let's see what they can do with this split. They're going to start off, to be honest with y'all, with a little bit of an easy one to kick off the week. They're playing Carolina. They should beat that team on pure skill alone. And then they play a Seattle team that just made a change, losing their best player. So I think New York's going to get off to a nice start this stage. I'm hoping they don't fumble the bag. Neither one of these two matchups. Beyond that, they're going to play Boston, FaZe, Miami, LAG, OpTic to play the rest of the split. So no Toronto, but they do have to play FaZe and OpTic, which I don't really favor them in right now. And then the 5 other matches, I like them. So I think they should make winners. I really do. Now, we're not going to change the order of the top 3, but I'll talk about them just for the sake of this video. Let's start with OpTic Texas. I don't really know how to slice it with this team. This split is about getting better in Surge. Getting better in Surge. And you lost Terminal Hardpoint, which you were really good at. Your only loss in Terminal Hardpoint was that Losers Finals against FaZe. Real Hardpoint should be fine for them though. 3 sub, 4 sub map. You look at the players on their team. You look at the way they play. They should be good at Real Hardpoint. Real S&D though is a bit of a question mark. And the reason that it's a question mark is because OpTic didn't play Skid Row Search at all in stage 1. And now they're going to have to master Real. And on top of the fact that they're not a great high-rise search team, not a great terminal S&D team, not a great invasion search team. I am very worried about this OpTic team in this S&D game mode. I was very confused why the entire community spent the week talking about play styles and respawn and not talking about the fact that this team is not that good in S&D. And it's the situationals in search. It's the team S&D stuff, especially on defense. So I'm hoping that they put in the work to improve that, because they're not going to be Toronto. They're not going to be FaZe consistently if they can't get good at S&D, because their respawn is solid, their hardpoint is great, their control is good, but they're not going to beat any of these good teams if they cannot master the S&D game mode. S&D wins championships. Now, if you're an OpTic fan, you're probably going to be a big fan of the schedule they have this split, because they only play mid teams until the end when they play 2 good teams. I think 2 good teams. Anyway, they're only going to have 1 match this week against Thieves. They should beat Thieves. If they don't beat Thieves, okay. After that, they've got Minnesota, ROKKR, LAG, Carolina, Boston, and then they close out against Toronto and New York. So I look at the schedule and I think to myself, they should win 4 of the first 5, be in winners bracket, and then you get to test yourself against some good teams. So if you're an OpTic fan, you should make winners bracket. What you're hoping for is a strong S&D performance this weekend against a Thieves team that is decent but not amazing in S&D. Then they're going to play a Minnesota team that's, you know what I mean? Like, they really don't play a stellar S&D team until Toronto. So I expect them to continue to improve the game mode. But if we're not really seeing a lot of progress, I've seen these guys blow 4v3s. I've seen these guys being able to retake bombs, unable to hold bombs once they plant in man-up situations. We're going to have a real tough conversation about them before Major. Let's move on to Atlanta FaZe. And they've only lost to 1 team this year, and that is Toronto. So just kind of really, FaZe has got the weirdest problem of everybody in the entire CDL of like, this team just knows how to be good, but like not be the best team on a week. And so I don't really know what to say to that. It's such a weird problem. We've seen other esports teams over the years, great teams end up being, you know, a real dynasty teams kind of overcome that issue. And this FaZe team has been first or second team for like 5 years. So I'm curious what they're going to do to fix it. You know, they were a solid terminal hardpoint team, but dude, you look at the personnel on this team, they're going to be good at real hardpoint. They were a solid Skid Row search team. Didn't really play terminal search. A real S&D comes in. I think they'll be fine at that too. So I'm not really worried about map pull for FaZe right now. They do need to work on sub-base hardpoint. We'll probably see them experiment with that a little bit in this stage. Their schedule coming up, they only have 1 match this week against Miami on Saturday. I expect them to win that one. And then they have New York, ROKKR, Toronto Thieves, Boston, LAG. So for FaZe, can maybe see them losing in New York or Toronto. I do think actually that Toronto matchup, getting a little bit of confidence against Toronto, I think would be really key. But the rest of the schedule, I FaZe getting 5, 6, maybe 7 wins a split. They're going to be one of your top seeds. Them and Toronto, man. They're going to make it to every Sunday to split unless they completely bomb out. They are clear ahead of everybody else. And I won't be surprised if they rematch at Florida in over a month and a half from now. And then obviously Toronto Ultra, didn't want to spend too much talking about these guys in this video because it's really just keep doing what you're doing. They only lost one hard point the entire stage 1 split. I think maybe the only criticism is that like people are just not going to play them on Karachi Search and high rise control, or rather people are not going to put them on Karachi Control, and high rise control is a bit of an iffy map. High rise S&D is a bit of an iffy map. They were a 4-0 team on Skid Row, so getting good at Rio S&D they'll need to figure out, but I think they'll be fine there. They didn't really play a lot of Terminal Hardpoint, and Rio is a map that really fits their eyes, so I'm not really worried about it. They get rid of the one map that they lost in Hardpoint all year. So I think Toronto is just going to need to plug away, keep on working what they're working on. Their schedule is mostly backloaded as far as what I think are the more difficult opponents. So they're going to start off against Miami this week, and then they'll play Minnesota on Sunday. And then after that, they've got Vegas and then Seattle. So they should really start off 4-0. Then they go to a FaZe OpTic kind of thing. And then they got Thieves at the end. So at worst, if you're Toronto, I think you're getting 5 or 6 wins a split. At best, I think they're going 7-0. If you're a Toronto fan, it's great times because this team looks really good. They look up to it, and they're going to be one of your top seeds going into this Major 2 event. But yeah, that's my tier list. It is a little funky. You're probably like, why are 6 teams to work to? I just don't know what to do about this bottom 9 situation right now. I think after the next 2 weeks, we'll have more clarity about how this kind of is shuffled with the changes, where people are out with the map pool stuff. But for me, the league right now is Toronto, and then FaZe, and then OpTic, and everybody else. Maybe New York makes a move up if they get back to their form, but it's just a mess with the 9 below those 3. And we'll see over the next couple of weeks who can lock in their winners bracket spot and who is going to be scrounging around in losers bracket, desperate to not lose ground in the COD champs race to make top 8. All right, let me know in the comments what you guys think of the video. Like if you enjoy, subscribe for more. And as always, guys, we will see you on the next one.